Hello everyone, welcome back to the Hindu Explainer series. I am Kushagra Goel and very warm greetings from Law Prep Tutorial. So as this Sunday, we close the week. Today's newspaper has little content for your current affairs preparation. So make sure that all the things that we have discussed over the week, you revise them. Don't skip that. Revision is the key to securing more and more marks in current affairs. That is the crux of the matter. एक बार पढ़ने से you will not be able to grasp majority of the things. You have to revise them. So make sure you get into the habit, if you aren't already, that Sundays should be used to revise them. Alright. So beginning with the doubts, a lot of you were having doubts about what the Lakshadweep Development Authority will be able to do. Alright, and prior to that there was a question also, what is difference between a regulation and a bill? A bill is a proposed law. For example, CLAT proposes to have the exam in multiple languages. So till that is not confirmed, it is still a regulation. It is still a bill. The moment it is passed, alright, then it is a law and can be enforced. Alright, so bills cannot be enforced, laws or regulations can be enforced. So that is the difference. The Lakshadweep Developmental Authority, that is still a bill. Matlab, in Lakshadweep or a union territory, the final decision making rests with the Ministry of Home Affairs. Just like in Delhi now, the government is lieutenant governor, and he, in case cannot decide something, will take orders from the Home Ministry of Government of India. So this is what the scenario is. Right now, the administrator Praful Khoda Patel has proposed a Lakshadweep Developmental Authority. The Home Ministry has stated they have not yet received the draft. So only when they see it and they confirm that yes, this is the case, and they confirm it as a law, only then the work will set in on that. Alright, so that is the situation in Lakshadweep as of now. Whenever that confirmation comes, we will talk about it, don't worry. Alright, then apart from this, you've asked what was the UN doing when the Rwanda genocide broke out. So as you would know from what happened in Israel-Palestine right now, right? Gaza Strip mein there was incessant rockets, airstrikes taking place in Gaza, and rockets were fired from Hamas, from Gaza to Israel. What was the UN able to do? Nothing. Why? Because different allies of different countries, for example, Israel's ally US, vetoed any decision making. So that is exactly what was happening back then also. Alright, so this is the UN is limited to what its member states can state or agree on what UN will do. Alright, so therefore even if it is an organization for world peace, it is dependent on its member nations, and especially the P5. The P5, that is the permanent 5 nations, if they all 5 of them are not in agreement, it's more or less unlikely for anything to happen. Alright, then so we move on to today's newspaper. So on the front page there is more news about the GOM. So yesterday Nirmala Sitharaman, our finance minister, announced that she's forming a group of ministers who will decide what waiver of COVID relief should be provided. So in that regard, the members of the panel have also been declared, that who all will be the member of the panel, within which there will be 8 of them. First will be Meghalaya Chief Minister, has been designated as the convener of the GOM, and it also includes Deputy Chief Ministers of Gujarat and Maharashtra along with other cabinet members. Alright, so this is the composition of GOM. Now, how important it is per se from examination point of view? Very limited. Why? Because the decision of the GOM is more important than the composition of the GOM. So I have highlighted the news not because the members of the GOM are important, but because the decision is something that can be important. Alright, Then on the right hand side, withdraw transfer orders of Chief Secretary. Now, there is another political controversy in West Bengal. This keeps on happening between central and state government now more and more. The Chief Secretary of West Bengal, that is Alapan Bandyopadhyay, was transferred to central deputation. So employees of the Union Public Service Commission are direct employees of the central government, but they are also independent in the sense that where they want to work, once they choose their cadre, they cannot be forced out. But this is being seen as an unprecedented step where a chief secretary who was supposed to retire in 2 days was transferred to central deputation, and the state government has been asked to release him. Alright, but the chief minister has stated that she would not be doing any of that. Now this is what the controversy is about related to the service rules. Okay, apart from this, on the front page, cases are dipping in India and we are reporting less number of deaths also, which is a good news. But remember, it is mostly happening because almost all states are in lockdown, and therefore we cannot let our guard down the moment restrictions get over. All right, then moving on this is the news about Sushil Kumar and the murder of another fellow wrestler by him, and how situation between them deteriorated far more. Then moving on, more about handling of the COVID-19 wave, and farmers announcing to observe June 5 as Sampoorn Kranti Divas, and calls for burning of copies of farm laws. Then, as our external affairs minister is in USA, that US will soon decide on vaccine issue. This is about the 60 million doses of AstraZeneca vaccine which have been lying in US. The stockpiling of it, which US has promised to release from July onwards. Apart from this, different other important issues were also discussed, particularly related to India-China border dispute and other diplomatic relations such as in Afghanistan. Okay, then moving on, the recall of chief secretary is unprecedented. This one discusses that there is a custom that an officer will not be deputed against his or her will. The chief secretary is the most senior bureaucrat in a particular state. He is even more in terms of seniority, they are far more senior to those officers placed on central deputation also. Alright, they are like the political bureaucratic superior in a particular state government. So these are the rules which govern it, and this is an explainer that such a thing doesn't usually happen, that people are not deputed without their consent. So this is more, it is obvious that this is more about political posturing than actually using someone. So why do you depute someone to a different position? You need their expertise or you want them to work at a particular thing. Now Mr. Bandyopadhyay is already on an extension. He's supposed to retire on May 31st. So basically for 2 days sending someone somewhere else is not actually going to add any utility to the place where they are going to join on. Alright, and the state government still has power to decide whether to relieve such an employee or not. So this is another place for political posturing between the central and the state government and their respective political parties. So therefore such an issue is less important. The reason why we are discussing the political side of it is to confirm that this is more important towards political posturing. Then here, when Nehru wanted the Globetrotter diplomats in print. So this is about the book that our first Prime Minister had created. This is something that has been annually done or not, we don't know. But this 1958 volume is about all the IFS diplomats and their biographies and biodata. That what their perspective is towards different issues that they are seeing. This is seen as a huge repository of important diplomats or people who went on to become important. For example, it has documents of Brijesh Mishra, who was NSA under Atal Bihari Vajpayee. Then Natwar Singh, who went on to become External Affairs Minister. Then there is Chinmaya Garekhan, who shaped India's diplomacy at UN. So there are different individuals. This is more about a book. It is very limited availability in different libraries across the country. So this is like heritage in terms of diplomacy of India from the first decade. Then on the other page also, the Prime Minister yesterday announced a scheme for children who have been orphaned. None of this scheme is actually coming at real time. So assistance towards financial assistance will only kick in at a later point of time. Health insurance cover of 5 lakh has been provided to children. Then corpus of 10 lakh per child to be created, and monthly stipend will be offered from the age of 18 onwards, that whenever they attain the age of 18, plus they will also be released a lump sum amount from age of 23. Apart from this, the government will provide education to these children. In case they are in private schools, government will under RTI furnish their fees, or under KV or central government schools they will be provided education for free. Then moving on is dazzling the skies. Surya Kiran aerobatic display team completes 25 years. So the Surya Kiran team had also participated in the aero show and the celebrations in Bangladesh for their liberation war. And yesterday they concluded their 25th anniversary and drew in a special formation of 75, which was once again in remembrance of the 75th Independence Day celebration, and the events was 75 weeks to go before our 75th Independence Day. So what is Surya Kiran? Where are they from? Surya Kiran, which means rays of the sun, raised in May 27, 1996 in Indian Air Force Base in Bidar with 6 Kiran Mk second trainer aircraft. Their first display was on September 15, 1996. Now, why is Surya Kiran important for us is because it participated this year in Bangladesh Liberation War celebrations. They had participated there. Here is the details. Their first foreign display was in Sri Lankan Air Force Day in 2001. Alright. So this is about Surya Kiran and their importance. This is basically aerobatic display team of the Indian Air Force. Then is the news about 13 more collectors can grant citizenship. What is this about? Who are these people? What is citizenship? And why are collectors being given the power to grant it? Citizenship is a central government subject. Who will be Indian citizen or not? So part 2 of the Indian Constitution becomes important, which deals with citizenship. Then we all know about the Citizenship Amendment Act, wherein people who are religiously prosecuted in our neighboring states of Pakistan, Bangladesh and Afghanistan were to be granted Indian citizenship. However, before the law comes in, or this law, that is the CAA, has not yet come in at all. Why? Because the rules of this have not been framed. So how does government grant citizenship in general to such people prior to this? How does it do it? So it grants citizens long-term visas, that is visas as long as 20 years, then keeps on extending it. Once you have been granted a LTV, then you getting citizenship is far more easier. Then what happens? You apply for citizenship and you will be granted. The central government has empowered collectors of 13 districts wherever refugees or people who have been religiously persecuted and displaced from their countries have come to India. Now for them to be granted citizenship, if they apply, the collectors have been empowered to grant it. So they don't even need to do it through the CAA. They can directly grant it based on those who possess the LTVs. So from 2011 to 2014, Indian government had already granted LTVs to 14,726 people, and that by 2018, Indian government had granted citizenship to 31,313 people in general. So this is basically the way that things were going on till the CAA kicked in. So even now, when the law has not kicked in, it is still important, or it is the mechanism through which people are granted citizenship. So we don't even need CAA. The same mechanism as an opposition argument was that why do you need a specific law when the system has already been working and you have the power to grant citizenship to all those people who you want to. So this is exactly what the government has used to grant citizenship to all those people. Then moving on, apart from this, is Republicans block Capitol riot probes. We all remember the pictures from January 6th of the violence that happened on the Capitol Hill building in United States. Now this was once again not discussed in the Senate. Why? Because of a rule. So the Democrats wanted to form a investigative probe, which would have been 9/11 style panel to investigate the violence. This bill was not put out to vote because of a rule known as the filibuster. But prior to that, so in US, you always take 2 votes. So unlike in our parliament, where the government introduces the bill and then can decide for how long will it discuss it and then finally vote on it. So for example, the famous August 5 Article 370's amendment. The government of India brought it and in 2 days it was passed. This confirmation that we have now confirmed to decide or how much time to debate on it so that opposition gets a chance to discuss it. This is something that is considered sacrosanct in US economies or US democracy. So to protect the right of the opposition to discuss a bill is known as the filibuster. The filibuster requires that 2 votes have to take place. Why? The first vote is to decide whether we should now vote on this or not. In this, you don't need simple majority, but you need a special majority. That is, 60% of the members need to vote, which is known as a super majority. In super majority, then, as long as there is a super majority, only then can this be done or a vote can finally be taken. So in the Senate right now, the Democrats are in power. They are in majority. They have 50-50 with the vice president's vote being deciding, and it is a Democratic vice president. So the Democrats are in majority, but they are in a simple majority. They do not have super majority, which is required. That is, they require 60 votes to move ahead. This extra restriction, what therefore is this filibuster? The filibuster is a vote to decide whether we should vote on a particular bill or resolution or not, or whether a bill or a resolution should be taken up for voting or not. Unless you have super majority to do it, you cannot bring up the bill. This is to say that, see, there is bipartisan support in the House, or there is higher vote in the House to at least willingness to do it. In 1960s, till 1960s, the filibuster was only a oral limitation, that as long as the opposition was wanting to discuss the bill, the vote cannot take place. But in India, none of this is there. Government brings in the bill, it decides what is the exact time period allocated for a particular debate, and no member can even deviate from that particular debate. Otherwise, their time allotted can be taken away. However, US believes that the opposition in the House has a right to discuss or deliberate on a bill. However, these decisions of whether to discuss on a bill or not are also taken on a partisan level, that people vote on their party lines, which was evident that the Republicans did not vote to have such a panel to probe the Capitol Hill riots. Already in January, the Republicans stalled the impeachment proceedings against Donald Trump for the Capitol Hill violence, all right, under which two-third majority was required, but in a filibuster. So in this news, the practice of filibuster becomes important from US Senate, and that is what is most important in today's newspaper for you all to note, because it is something US elections, US diplomacy, what happens in US democratic rules or their democratic structure becomes important for CLAT 2021, and filibuster is another practice of the US democracy. Therefore, that becomes important to be known. All right. Then moving on. So China has locked down its city Guangzhou because of rise in coronavirus cases, and the rise in cases is actually 20 cases have been recorded in the city in the past 1 week. So this is how severe different countries take up rise in COVID cases, unlike where even if a state is proposing still 5 to 6,000 cases, we start doing the unlock proceedings, which shows the state of different level of severity we attach to COVID-19 and also the economic situation in different areas. Then moving on, as Putin hosts Lukashenko, US hits Belarus with sanctions. So what is this? This is about the journalist being forcefully arrested from a flight mid-air. That is Roman Petrosevich. Alright, so the president Alexander Lukashenko is closer to Russia. He has been in power since 2020 for the past 27 years, and therefore he has close ties to Russia, and more sanctions are now being imposed on Belarus from the Western countries. So this is once again another war between the two parties, in the sense of a cold war between the Western countries and Russia, power posturing between the two countries. Then moving on, the science and technology page, nothing of real note for us. Then on FAQ section, what is the center WhatsApp tussle over the new IT rules? So what has happened and what has been the stand? Under the new IT rules, a social media intermediary is a significant social media intermediary if it has close to 50 lakh users, or if it has more than 50 lakh registered users. That is the standard. WhatsApp has close to 500 million users in India. Alright, so it has approximately 50 to 60 crore users of the app in India. Now that is one thing. Now under this, because of the new rules, now WhatsApp has to appoint an internal committee, an individual who will deal with complaints. That is first compliance. The second part is traceability. That if the government wants, the message can be traced by WhatsApp, that who is this individual who has sent it. As per now, WhatsApp messages or the content of a message is limited to the individual who has sent the message and the individual who has received the message. But now the government wants, under the new rules, for WhatsApp to break this encryption and look into what message it wants to take. So the moment encryption is open, the entire conversation history of a person is open to the government. So WhatsApp has stated that, see, to do this, it would be the end of privacy. That the moment government asks, this is an important case, this is something that is going to happen, so therefore revoke this encryption and tell us about this individual. Right now, WhatsApp does share certain details with the government. What are the details it is supposed to share if the government asks? The username, the email address, the mobile number, when was the person last seen on WhatsApp, and what are the WhatsApp groups that individual is part of. Remember, if you go to your WhatsApp profile, you will see all the groups that you are part of. Alright, that is not encrypted detail. or that is not encrypted in general. Therefore, WhatsApp has to share that with government. But now WhatsApp will be forced to share your private conversation with an individual if the government seeks that to be the case. So WhatsApp has written that, see, this would be, in order to trace one message, service would have to trace every message, because you can't decide when was this message sent. You have to see all the messages to determine, okay, this is the message. So that would mean a WhatsApp employee first looking at the entire WhatsApp conversation, then different government employees also looking at the exact conversation all together. And that there are other problems also with such a rule of traceability. What is this? So let's say you got a message from someone, alright, and then you copied that message and posted it in another group. Or let's say a friend of mine sent me a message, I copied that message and sent it somewhere else. Then I would become the first originator. So even if it was a message I got from somewhere else, but I shared it myself, or someone sent me an image, I actually downloaded it and then sent it in different other groups, then also I become the first originator. So if the government is looking for a particular message, there would be hundreds of individuals who would have had a similar message if it is a WhatsApp forward. And then, or if it was a WhatsApp forward which people copied and then shared it, so all of them would become first originator. All their WhatsApp conversations will then also be told to the government. So privacy is being restricted here. The government of India has responded on two levels. First is the argument that no fundamental right is absolute, that for purpose of prevention, detection, investigation, prosecution, punishment of an offence related to sovereignty and integrity of India, the government has the right to deal with howsoever it wants to. We know in the recent times how even the most trivial kind of offences can be armed against you to put people in jail. So this ground that it is related to sovereignty or integrity of India is evoked in almost all cases, because we have sedition as a criminal law in India. So this is the government stating first that no fundamental right is absolute, and therefore privacy itself is also not absolute. But we also should remember that Article 21, under which right to privacy was declared as a fundamental right, in itself can never be suspended even in emergency scenarios, or if an emergency is imposed in a government, in a country. So right to privacy also then extends to that level of protection, that it cannot be suspended in emergency situations also. The second argument of the government is the test of proportionality. So when we had discussed these rules, I had yesterday also told you that there is any restriction on Article 19, or which is speech in general, whatever you'll write on WhatsApp will be part of your speech, that can be limited only as per the 3-part test. The third part is the test of proportionality. In it, the government has to prove that, see, such a restriction is necessary in a democratic society, and secondly, it is the least restrictive mechanism to restrict it. So in that regard, the government has stated that traceability measure will be a measure of last resort, and in complying with an order for identification of the first originator, no significant social media intermediary shall be required to disclose the content of any electronic message or any other information related to first originator or information related to its other users. Now, last resort is a doctrine of investigative agency, that, see, we will look for other avenues, nothing works, then we will ask you to do it. We know this is a slippery slope argument, that it can always happen otherwise. Alright, so this is the case. Then the ministry has referred to a communique of different companies, that UK, US, Australia, New Zealand and Canada had also released a communique. What is a communique? Common intention. That, see, you should provide us with some access to harmful illegal content. That illegal content cannot be given absolute immunity, and terrorist activities or such crimes need to be controlled or surveyed. So in that regard, this is a communication. It is not a law in these countries. Nowhere in the world WhatsApp is asked to actually trace content of each individual. Then how long has traceability debate been going on in India? In the case which we discussed a couple of days ago, that is Anthony Clement Rubin versus Union of India, the government had stated that, see, if encryption can be broken so easily, then the protection to right to privacy itself will be futile. All right, so that is the argument of government of India to limit it, and WhatsApp has stated that, see, this would be the end. Nowhere in the world apart from governments where there is dictatorship or one party rule in power where all of this happens. All right, then on the left hand side, zero survey learning. Does the knowledge of extent of exposure of COVID? What are zero surveys? We have already done it. This is once again that government takes random blood samples from participants across the country to determine the caseload of infection. Right now we haven't had a zero survey. We have had 3 national zero surveys. The last one told us that there is infection up till 21% of the population. That had happened in the first week of January. Since then we have had no zero surveys. The ICMR has stated that, see, zero surveys can tell us the extent of infection load in a country. However, we can't take it right now because now we have been providing vaccines to people, and with vaccines people will possess some amount of immunity, or they will have in their blood some amount of coronavirus, which is reflected in zero surveys. So we may not be able to arrive at the accurate projection that how many people were infected, because some of them would not have been infected but have been vaccinated, and that will also show in the zero survey data. Then probing the origins of SARS-CoV virus. Now why is this happening? This is related to the origin of coronavirus, whether it was something that naturally happened from an animal to humans, or was it artificially created and then it spread to humans. So both these possibilities have not yet been ruled out by WHO. In case it was something from a lab in a particular country, the liability of lives lost because of such an accident would be with the country where it originated. Alright, so in that regard, the origin right now, it is seen more likely that it was a zoonotic virus. It came from bats. Why? Because the genome similarity of bat, which is the horseshoe bat found in Wuhan area, is 96.2% similar. However, scientists claim that, see, this virus, this COVID-19 coronavirus, is very different to the other coronaviruses that we have seen in MERS and SARS, and 96.2% is very different to a virus. It would take decades of mutation for it to transfer from a bat to what it is right now, and therefore, and that secondly, the arrangement of ACE2 receptors, which are the spike proteins that we see on the coronavirus, seemed like it was artificially created and that it wasn't actually naturally present, which is also the reason why coronavirus spreads so fast between human beings. Alright, so this is the debate about origin, that it could have happened from lab, it could be a zoonotic virus. It is not yet confirmed. So therefore WHO is being asked to investigate it all over again. Then on the profile section, between the sea and the hard place. So this article lists out the history of Lakshadweep Islands, 32 of them, their size. In total, the landmass that they still till now possess is only 36 square kilometer of landmass that is available. 96%, 97% of that land is still forest. Lakshadweep are these pristine sea lands with beaches, and most of them being covered in forest and Coral islands are also part. Therefore, activity and population of the area is very limited. This is the little bit of history of Lakshadweep. It formally was created as a union territory in 1956. Till then, it was part of two different union territories, that is Union Territory of Laccadive, Minicoy and Amidivi Islands was formed in 1956. Till then, it was divided between Laccadive group of islands and Minicoy and Amidivi Islands, alright, and then it was merged to form this one union territory of Laccadive Islands in 1956 and then was renamed as Lakshadweep in 1973. Alright, and that in democratic participation, what is the system there? So, since Panchayat Amendment Act of 72nd Amendment Act was brought in, Panchayat elections take place in Lakshadweep since 1994. However, the role of the government or the administrator is far more important. The people still have very limited decision making. And secondly, Lakshadweep and its coral reef system form part of integrated island management plan. Because the area is so sensitive from environment perspective, it is very important to ensure protection to it from such industrial activities. So this is about Lakshadweep. We need to wait more about what the central government decides. Then on the left hand side, plucked from the sky, is the profile of the journalist who has been arrested along with his girlfriend Sophia. Both of them videos have been released by the KGB. KGB is also the formal name of the Secret Service Agency of the USSR. Belarus, which was part of USSR, has continued to have a similar kind and its secret service goes by the same name. So videos have been released of both of them saying that yes, they participated or organized mass protests against Lukashenko. So this is once again that, see, organizing protests in India or asking people to protest against the government is in itself a crime. Something that is similar to colonial government, something that is similar to dictatorships, something that is related to autocratic governments. And in general, the right to dissent is something that makes a country democratic. So, and in India, that part of right has been going down slowly and slowly, but still not to the level that you hijack a plane and land it in your airstrip, then arrest certain people. So this is the story of him. And then on the right hand side, about the profile of Subodh Kumar Jaiswal, the new CBI chief. Alright. Then on economic and sporting section, nothing of real note. BCCI has confirmed that IPL will resume in UAE, and how many foreign cricketers will be able to participate in it is still not decided. So on that note, I will conclude for the day. Take care everyone, and I will see you all tomorrow.